Okay, doke. Is that got everyone back? Lovely. Okay, so welcome back, everyone. So Power BI governance. I feel like when I say that, you're probably thinking I'm going to talk to you about tenant settings and workspaces and how to do your access management. And there's a bit of that, but really what this is about is how do you get your data to the right people in the right way? So how do you have a governance strategy that does not bore the life out of the end users? How do you have a governance strategy that doesn't actually turn people away from using Power BI altogether? So we're going to talk a bit about governance, but also about engagement. How do you release Power BI in an organization that people actually want to use while still maintaining a bit of control? So a little bit of an intro, you've already heard about me. So I'm Megan Livadas. I've been a Power BI fangirl since probably about 2018 when I was in an admin job doing loads of Excel and someone chucked me a Power BI license and the rest is history. I've been leading end-to-end Power BI implementations across financial services, particularly insurance for the last 2 years, and also tech and a bit of consumer goods in the last couple of years. But I also help organizations design their BI strategy. So not just how do I build something, how do I actually get it out there and with what? I'm here with Dufrain, so a couple of Dufrainians here in the second row. We are a market leader in data management services and data analytics. There is about 200 of us now. When I joined just nearly 3 years ago, there was less than 100 of us, so it's quite exciting. I always say we are technology agnostic, so we work with Microsoft, Tableau, Amazon, Google, but I am not technology agnostic. I am very biased. Typically, I only do Power BI because it's just the best. But yeah, that's the way it goes. We're developing a lot of very exciting accelerated products, and so a lot of what we're trying to do is fast track our clients to get to where they need to be. And so yeah, today let's get stuck in. So why do we govern? Why do we bother? Typically, the way this goes is you start as an organization with Power BI, purchase a couple of licenses, you chuck them out to your data team, and you get going. And then maybe Steve in finance wants one. Yeah, it's fine. There you go, Steve. And then Jean in marketing, she wants one. Yep, no worries. You find yourself 6 months in, you have exploded your workspaces, you've got more reports than you ever knew could exist, and you have got no track of where your version of the truth lives. You've got duplicate versions of the same data and very poor version control. So what you need to ask yourself is, what are we actually trying to control? What's the point of this? Why do we have a workspace strategy? And it's because you need to balance the two sets of needs in your business. What do we, the data people, so I'm maybe addressing, I'd say most of the room here, what do we want as data people? What we want is for people to trust our MI. We want people to look at our report and say, this is the single version of the truth, this is the golden source, and therefore I can trust this data and make data-led decisions. We also want to reduce our overhead. We don't want to be swimming in admin change requests. We want to make life easy for ourselves. But what do they want? I might be addressing some people in the room who are end users of Power BI. Well, what they want is quick insight. I have got money to make, I've got a sales opportunity, I've got a regulatory requirement. I don't have time to sit in a queue. I need my insight now, and I want to be able to trust it as well. And so that key element about trust is really what ties both of these groups together. So I would say that with anybody in the room, if you are working with Power BI, you could be in all sorts of areas of your Power BI journey. You could be at the very start, you could be years into it. Regardless, it's never too late to review your governance strategy and really get a grip on your version of the truth. But the important thing is, before you get lost in settings and blogs about the best way to administer your access, you need to have a holistic approach and actually consider your business strategy. I think a lot of people can stand up here and tell you this is the best way to have workspaces and this is the best way to administer their access. They might be right, but really, Microsoft would not give you the functionality if it was the wrong way to do it. Microsoft is a product, about empowering everyone. So I'm not going to stand here and tell you there is one way to govern your org. It depends on how you want to operate as a business. So just by a show of hands, how many people in the room here are a Power BI admin? Okay, right, nice couple. And then Power BI developers, the most, okay. And is anybody here solely like a business user? They use Power BI as a consumer rather than develop? No? Okay, so mostly data people, but a couple of admins. Okay, that's good to know. So let's get into, where does governance live in the wider data strategy? How do we balance controls with innovation? I'm going to talk about 3 sort of sample organizations here. So let's start off with an organization in this area here, and I'm sure we've all worked in an organization like this. People are getting the data that they want and they are engaged. They're happy. So I'm delving in, I can get what I need, and I'm happy with that. But there is no governance in place. This is your free-for-all. This is where there is, loads of versions of reports, there is duplicate information, KPIs exist in different places with different calculations from different sources. Insight is very siloed, so areas are working with great data that other people don't know exists. I'm sure that there are also some organisations that are probably just doing the self-serve part without actually the engagement. They're not happy about it. When you have that, it's very easy to implement governance. You're giving them the answer to their problems. But to take these areas that are free for all and quite happy about it, it can be very hard to then move them into the governance. So what you often end up with is you move around the cycle and you have an organisation that is got self-service capability and it's got lots of governance in place, but people aren't engaged. They're not using it. This typically comes down to one of two issues. One, a training issue. So people don't actually know what's available to them. They don't know how to self-serve. They don't know what models to access. But this can also be that you have over-governed. You have made your tool so stifling that people can't get going with what they need to get going. This is particularly relevant if you've done a migration, if you've moved from one tool to another, and in the process you've completely changed the governance. If you didn't have a BI tool before, if you're an Excel org and you're now implementing Power BI, people are faced with all sorts of controls they've never had before. And so the boards, they don't want to use it. You're telling them, no, nope, you can't do this. You're not clever enough to do this. Only I can do it. And so you're stuck in this world of you've got all the answers, but people don't want to listen. There is also such an organisation that lives in this kind of area here. So a well-governed org with high engagement, but no self-service. Now, this can work. There are plenty of organisations out there that don't need self-service capability. If you've got a superstar BI team, really fast SLAs, really proactive business partnering, you can live in a world where you deliver canned reports, people consume them, and they're happy. But what we're going to talk about today, the goal is this sweet spot right in the middle. We want to look at a well-governed org with self-service capability and high engagement. We want to give people their access to their data and them to be using it and be happy. There is no one-size-fits-all way to achieve this, but what we're going to work towards in this next kind of half hour is what are the considerations? And I'm going to give you 3 pillars of areas to consider as you roll out that strategy. Now, if I'm saying, well, actually, you can live without self-service, you can have governance and engagement, and that's okay, let's just examine that a bit more. So this is the data governance hourglass. This is what a typical organisation without self-service capability can often start to look like. You got your data bottlenecked up here and this slow trickle of insight that makes its way down. There are 2 causes of this bottleneck. You got your people that are actually able to request the MI and your people who can access and share the data. So by not having self-service, you are limiting the ability for the data to flow through into insight. And the only way to really widen that bottleneck and create a world in which the data can flow through to insight without these people being a blocker is with self-service. If I have a report and it's just missing one column, do I really need to put a ticket in ServiceNow to get that in? Maybe I'm just missing a filter. I know it's in there in the model, but it's not in that report. And by having to have a ticketing system, which is usually what exists in this world without self-service, you are limiting the insight that can be flowing through to your business. So, self-service. If I'm saying that, I'm sure there's lots of things maybe popping into different people's heads. I think we've all got our own idea of what self-service can look like. And so we have devised at Dufrain a self-service pyramid that show you the various tiers of self-service. This was created by me and my colleague up in Edinburgh, Glen. And so we've actually done like a kind of 40-minute session just on this alone, which will be coming onto our kind of Dufrain social series soon. So if any of this is interesting, you can go onto our socials soon and delve into it a bit more. But to whiz through it a bit, I would say there are 4 really zones of self-service that we can work with. As we work our way through the pyramid, we increase our business user freedom. We are giving them more that they can do, but we are limiting our data team control. So as we work our way down, us, the data people, we lose control, but the business people, they gain more freedom. So right up the top here, the kind of 2 pink areas, tier 1 and tier 2, I would say this is a self-service strategy for an immature data organisation. So that is the type of organisation where data literacy is not very high in your business, or maybe it's just skill set, it could be engagement, people don't have the time to self-serve, and this is all they need. So what I'm talking about here is turning on personalisation of your reports. So your data team give you the report, but by switching on personalization, I can take that bar chart and I can turn it into a table in my own version. I'll save that in my workspace. And what you've got there is that's one ticket that's not sat in your queue. There's not a second copy of a report made just for one person. They've personalized that report for them. And every time you roll out changes to that model and that report, it's going to flow through nicely to that person's report. Analysing in Excel. Now, I know for a lot of Power BI people, Excel is a bit of a dirty word, but it really can be the answer to cutting down a lot of the overheads that we as BI people have to have. So if you encourage your business users to use Excel, plug in to your models, you're only going to be bringing them on board. When you say, don't do things in Excel, no, don't do that, they're just not going to use your data. They're going to source data themselves, or they're going to moan about it in your queue. By encouraging people to adopt your Power BI models in Excel, they can get into the data. Yes, there's drill through, but it's a journey. So when it comes down to, okay, here's all my sales, right, I want to get right into sales. I want to look at every single policy reference and the date it was sold. You can give them that drill through feature, but it's going to take time to get them adopting that. So in that interim, where you're getting them kind of naturally into a BI tool, especially like early in your journey, embrace Excel rather than run away from it and get people using your models in Excel. And that's what brings you back into that one version of the truth. Now, a more mature organisation when it comes to data literacy is going to live in this area here. So centralised data sets, and people have the ability to build their own reports. I would say this is the ideal, and this is usually the kind of ideal recommended self-service capability that I would strive my clients towards. So you want your data team to be the only ones that build data sets, centralized data models endorsed by them, certified by them, but you encourage your power users to be able to build reports off that. So if I create the sales model and it's got all the data that is needed for that topic, all of the key measures and centralized KPIs, if someone in marketing is going to want to cut that up a completely different way to someone in finance, and they can do that without sitting in my queue, things are going to come up. Regulatory requirements change, sales opportunities change, and so to limit your people to only having reports that come through the data team, this is what really tightens that bottleneck. And so this, I would say, is a sweet spot you want to work towards when it comes to self-service. And what we're going to talk about is, well, how does that exist in cohesion with governance? Now, we can go a little bit deeper in the self-service pyramid. I would say that tiers 4 and 5 are okay strategies for more small to medium businesses or low budget orgs. So if you're the type of business where you don't have a lot of money to spend on shiny data warehouses and data platforms, maybe Power BI is your sole tool, or you're just a bit smaller and there's not really as much noise to kind of work your way through, data flows are a great feature. So something simple like a date table. You don't want every single Power BI person to have to build their own date table. Chuck a data flow in there and people can plug in and reuse that. And that is a great way to keep one source of the truth. Now this next one, business owns data sets. I'm not going to lie, this was a point of contention between Glenn and I. This is one of Glenn's ideas, and I'm going to present it to you. I could have cut it out, but I wanted to do right by Glenn. So business owned data sets is one of Glenn's proposals where, let's say you are a small business, you could be HR and you maintain the data set that has salaries in it. If I'm finance, I want to add that. I want to add stuff to the salary data set. So I can actually connect to HR's data set and I can add my own. And there still maintains that version of governance because it's HR owned, but then as finance, I'm a consumer and I can build upon that data set. So yeah, that can be a world for a smaller business. You're not going to find a strategy like that, I'd say, in your larger organizations. But I think the thing about the governance strategies that work is embracing what can happen and making it work rather than constantly being the guy that says no. And then right at the bottom, brand new data sets. So this is a world in which anyone in the business can build a new data set and just go for it. I'd say this is great for ad hoc, tactical analysis. It's not going to be the kind of thing you're going to embrace as a strategic way of working. So I think we're all on board with what we mean by self-service. And so, we want to adapt to self-service capability wherever you kind of fall in this pyramid. And now we want to govern it. So how do we do that? These are our 3 pillars of Power BI governance. And so, as I've said, there is not a framework. There is not a way that I can say to you, this is how you go and govern your org. I know how I would do it, but then my colleague Glenn would probably do it a different way. Everyone in the room would probably have a different way that they like to see workspaces. I think you all know what it's like when you be starting a new org that's been with Power BI for a while and you see how they've set their workspaces up or their access up and you're like, I don't like that. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just not your way. But that's the beauty of Power BI. There is not a right or a wrong way to do it. And I'm not going to stand here and make it, I'm an expert and this is my way. It's about making it work for you and your business. So what this is about is giving you the 3 areas of consideration, but you need to take these and apply them to your strategy as a business. How do your people work together? What skill sets have you got? The way that an organisation with really data literate marketing teams is going to work is not the same as a kind of marketing team that aren't very data literate, and so you've got to adapt for your people. So the 3 pillars of governance: people, the process, and the technology. In this middle section, process, this is probably what you maybe all thought I was going to be talking about: your administration. your settings. How do I set things up? How do I deploy? How do I manage my version control? And so, yes, that is absolutely a core pillar of governance, but you can't have that without considering your people and the technology that you support them with. So when it comes to people, what roles exist in Power BI? So we covered there are some of you in the room that are Power BI admins. What does that mean? What is their remit? Um, who are your power users? Who is your centralized data team? And who are the people who consume your reports? How do you train those people? And how do you engage with your community? And this is what I'm going to talk about next. And then finally, technology. So what are the development standards that you should expect of the business? How do you advise your business what best practice is? And then how do you monitor? So let's talk people. When it comes to people, you have to define the roles that exist in your Power BI world. So I cannot stress enough the importance of a Power BI admin. I would say if you are a 20-man business and you have a Power BI guy, great, that's your Power BI admin. And that might also be your Power BI developer and everything else, and that's fine. But it is so important to stress the amount of responsibility that that Power BI admin has. If you are a very large organization, you might have a dedicated Power BI admin. You might have a singular person whose role it is to be the admin for that business. And that involves, I guess, pretty much everything we're going to talk about. So the processes that you need to deploy, that person needs to be all over that. What settings do they have? And it needs to be them that owns the workspace strategy, your access management. It also needs to be them that gets involved in the training and the engagement. That Power BI admin, I really believe, can't just be the person saying, you can't have that, I'm switching that off. They need to be active with the business. And so I'd say a trend that I would see is the role of a BI business partner or a data business partner. I think we're all used to hearing of finance business partners, HR business partners, but a data business partner, I think, is one of the really prevalent roles that we're seeing. And your Power BI admin also being a data business partner, I think, is a great way to tie together switching things off because I can and actually understanding what people want to do and making those two things work in harmony. Now, what is the remit of your centralised data team? What do you expect from them? And what is the expectations of your power users? So where I'm talking at the start about workplace explosion, someone's just added a lot of workspaces and they've put a model in it that's connected to another model and a source I've never seen. Those people might be your headaches early on in your governance strategy, but you cannot turn away from those people and slap them on the wrist. You've got to pull them into your strategy. Those people are going to be the people that champion your Power BI organization and telling them, no, you can't have this and you can't do that. And yes, I've done it myself. These people that sit in digital and they make loads of rogue models that are different to mine. It's very easy to sit them down and say, no, stop that. But actually, they're the champions that are getting out there and trying to get stuff done. They're the ones that are trying to get things moving. And if you tell them no, well, then everything that they're trying to do, that's going to become your problem. So work with them and embrace them and help them understand what you expect from them and at the same time understanding what they can bring to you. What are the limitations of your citizen developers? So what do you actually expect someone sat in finance who's developing Power BI? What do you expect them to be able to do? And do you need KPI owners? So you define a new KPI. I've worked in businesses that are the product of a lot of mergers, and you'll find that this person, this person, this person all report in the same KPI up top with completely different definitions. You can get all those people in a room, you can get them to align. Who owns that though moving forward? Who owns that definition? And assigning KPIs an owner, someone in the business who champions that KPI, is a great way to maintain a governance strategy, because when someone asks and wants to change it, you can point them their way. Training. So do not assume the capability of your report consumers. I think one of the biggest fallovers I would see, particularly when it comes to things like UAT, launching of reports and getting people to adapt to your new reporting, is we assume as developers and people that have worked with Power BI for a very long time that they know exactly what we're looking at, that they know how to drill through, particularly things like matrices. Matrices are a great way to really streamline reporting. So I'm not going to give you 5 views of the same thing. I'm going to get you to drill up and drill down. You don't need a yearly view and a monthly view and a daily view. It's in the one place. You can't assume that your users actually know what those arrows all do. If you've got handed the tool, it's got 4 arrows and 4 different ways to drill up and down, you need to take the time to embrace those people and show them how to work that through. And that's a lesson I've learned myself. I've been with Power BI since 2018. It's easy to take these things for granted. Absolutely encourage interactivity. Again, this is all tied to governance in the sense that without interactivity, you can't streamline the volume of reports that you've got. When you are a business who your users don't interact with the reports a lot, you're going to have to create a lot of duplicate versions of things, showing them the same stuff, or add a lot of filters they don't need, when actually they can click a bit of the bar chart and it filters the rest of the report. Develop your power users and your central data team. So what learning pathways do you recommend? I think, Microsoft Learn has got so much free content out there. You don't need to, as a business, be paying for really expensive training courses when it's online for free. Microsoft PL 300, Power BI Data Analyst. I would say that's a great learning path for any developer. It covers everything from, developing, visualization, and administration, everything that we're talking about today. So as a developer, you might never see the admin portal, but understanding what goes on in there and that learning pathway is going to help you work so much better. And I think as a business, have a pathway as part of your, development program, both for your centralized data team and for your power users, because the better trained they are, the less of a headache that they're going to be. And so how do you keep up to speed with releases? This is also very important. Power BI changes literally every month. That means that best practice also changes literally every other month. Things that we used to do, for example, stack loads of visuals on top of each other with bookmarks along the top, that's dead now. We don't need to do that because you have parameters where you can swap matrices in. So I am currently about 18 months into a data platform build at a large client, and I'm already having to go back and revisit some of the best practice advice I've gave them, some of the things that we've deployed in our core flagship reports. Let's get rid of those bookmarks. Let's replace them with these matrices. And this is how you need to make sure you stay up to release. Have, if you've got a centralized data team, have a nominated person whose job it is to go and read the blogs, understand what's new, and present back to the rest of your team. And this also comes into community engagement. Where do people go for help? I think the best advice I would have here is have a Teams channel in your business that anybody can get access to, a very public facing one where people can drop in, share what they're doing. The ideal is that your users start helping each other. So, Dave in finance has had a problem and then actually it's Jean in marketing that answers it for him. That is the ideal place to get to. And this is also where BI business partner roles really come back into this. Preempt your requirements. You don't want to be chasing a backlog when you could be proactively understanding what your business are going to want from you. So, process, and again, this is usually the bread and butter of governance. So, the tenant settings that are available, things like, can people publish to the web? Can they export to Excel? Can they sign up to a free trial? This is all the kind of stuff that you're used to hearing as a Power BI admin. And so I'm not going to walk you through every tenant setting and every workspace strategy that people can have, because as I've said, it's up to you as a business. All this content is available on Microsoft's website. There's loads of documentation. All I'm trying to call out here is to set some time aside to consider it and have an approach to it. It shouldn't be something you do on the fly. It should be something that you have mapped out. How do you manage change requests and data access requests, incidents, this should all be things that you have mapped out and planned. And how do you communicate this with your business? So I would recommend always having, in our core apps, the front page is a refresh schedule report that shows you this data has failed today, and that's going to save you a lot of tickets. So if the underlying data refresh has failed in your data warehouse, there's no point you getting a flood of tickets to tell you that the data is missing, because you can tell them about it first. Deployment plans, so version control. Now, this is also something that you'll find hotly debated. I think you come to talks like this, especially with the release of GitHub integration, you're going to hear a lot of very exciting ways to do version control. I'm going to hold my hands up. I'm very traditional when it comes to this. I like a good SharePoint folders, copy and paste my PBIX files, put it in the SharePoint and back up. Version control is there. You can check it in and out. This works well in a very trusted team. If you have a team where they work well together, they communicate, this can be fine. But there are a lot of very exciting ways out there to manage your version control, if that is your thing. Deployment pipelines. So how do you manage something going from dev to prod? So workspaces, dev, UAT, prod, this can work fine. Power BI has an inbuilt feature for deployment pipelines. This is, again, something to consider. And finally, how do you engage with your business? How do you actually tell them something's changed? You've released a brand new feature. How do you let everyone know about it? Coming back to your community engagement, if you've got a Teams channel set up with all your users in it and they're excited about using it, you've got one place that you can now come to tell your business about something that's changed. And technology. So development standards. And this is typically where, as most of the people in the room are developers, we're going to live. So what is the expected standards of your modelling? Shift left, can't say that enough. It's also very easy as the Power BI person to put all the work onto the data engineers, but it is the best way to do things. I can't stress enough that just because Power BI can be an ETL tool does not mean it should be. Anything that is logic, I think, unless we're talking averages or percentages, it should live as close to the source as possible. So if column A plus column B equals this, well then that should live in a view in a warehouse in Databricks, and then that is one singular source to the truth. And this is going to become all the more prevalent as we start to talk about things like Fabric. and absolutely QA your models on an ongoing basis. I think that you can have core models that you built yourself that are great. If other people have got access to them, check in on them in a year's time. You will find calculated columns that have been added that you want to get rid of. I am personally of the opinion that calculated columns should not exist. There is no need. The minute my team add a calculated column, they also add a ticket on the DevOps board to get shifted into the view. Because anything you're going to have to store at a column level should really live in the source. Best practice guidelines. So how do you communicate all that technical stuff with the business, with the people that are developing and using these reports, and understand that it evolves over time? So coming back to those releases, you need to make a point of your journey in your career to evolve your practices. It can never stand still. So monitoring. And I think monitoring is one of the really cool bits of Power BI governance. I don't have any really exciting demos on there, but I know Microsoft themselves, their customer team recently shared a video of REST APIs. How can you export your data, your metadata, out of Power BI? I think one of the biggest headaches for Power BI admins is having to navigate your way around workspaces. So, okay, I'm going to add myself into that workspace. I don't know what it is. Who is it that actually runs it? What is in it? What have they got access to? It's a lot of clicks. You can rip all that data out and set yourself up a really nice monitoring tool. I know this is something we're working on internally at Dufrain so that we can have our own version. We just drag and drop. I really do think this will be an out-of-the-box feature coming. Eventually, I really think that Microsoft will adopt it. You can see now the monitoring hub, so you can see all your scheduled refreshes, what's failed, what takes the longest. That was quite an exciting feature. So if anyone's not looked at that yet, have a look, see which models take the longest to run. I was quite happy to say at my client, when I looked in, the one that took the longest to refresh every day was not one of the data teams. It was one of my Rogue Power users. So we went and had a wee chat. Okay, why is that taking half an hour to run every day? It's because he's using umpteen sources that do not live in the governed world. And this is exactly the kind of stuff you need to stay on top of. But things like the monitoring hub are really going to help you stay on top of. Usage reporting. So usage reporting is not just there for you to be nosy and spy on what people are up to. It should be there to drive your pipeline of work. So it shouldn't really just be about who shouts the loudest, which director is in your ear most, championing a new report. Look at your usage reporting. If people are not looking at something, is it because they actually don't care? They're not interested. It's not a point. What can be exciting to you as a data person does not mean it's going to be exciting to your business. Or are they not using it because it's crap? Maybe they're not using it because you've not gave them the tools. And that's where you need to be proactive in speaking to the business and understanding why are they not using that report. The really high usage reports, well, it's working, so don't break it. They're happy with it. Or understand what could be added to it. And where it's needed, be the Power BI police. This is typically my job title. And most of the clients I go to is Megan, Power BI police. Check in on your business owned workspaces. So take the time, check in, have a look at what they're up to. And I can't stress enough how many times I've found things in there. Why is that a brand new data set? That is literally right here. It's certified, you've got everything you need, and you've wasted months of your time getting all that together off a legacy source that I'm going to switch off in 6 months. So you need to be proactive on this. And so that is the pillars of Power BI governance. I think I'm just going to close off with a little bit about Fabric. So last month I was at London user group. I thought I was going to the Power BI user group. Actually brought my sister along. She's like 21, right out of uni. I was like, right, come listen to Power BI. And instead it was, oh, Fabric is launching. And I thought, oh, great, I'm doing a talk next month on governance. That's going to go right out the window. But it didn't. The only thing that changed is this last slide, because Power BI is not going anywhere. I think as Power BI specialists, when you hear about Fabric and it's changing, a lot of the Power BI forums are now Fabric forums. Things like Copilot, ChatGPT for Power BI. Can feel a little bit stressful. It can feel a little bit like, oh my God, what is going to happen to my governance? If anyone can access the lake and anyone can ask ChatGPT to build them a report, it is not stressful. And I can't stress enough, run towards these things, don't run away from them. I think that what Fabric is going to bring to us, one lake for a start, will stop the need to copy our data so much, import it from here to here to here. The method of shortcuts to get right to your data is going to support the governance that we're looking for. So embracing a world in which your teams can access one lake and understand the data that Power BI is creating rather than having siloed data warehouses, it is going to make life easier. And the same security provisions are going to be in place. They've always been in place. So we're not going to live in a world where all of a sudden everybody in a call centre has got access to my core data lake. I think this will support the one version of the truth model that we're after. I also think that what's quite exciting about Fabric is the notion of one data team. So if you are an organisation that has quite siloed data engineers and BI people, maybe your data engineers sit in IT and your BI people are sat in the business or they're analysts somewhere, that will not work, I think, in a Fabric world. We need to be one data team. You need to start considering how these people can work together. and collaborate to improve delivery. Synapse, Azure Data Factory, if that is your tool of choice, it is coming into Power BI. You will not have a Power BI admin and Azure admin over there. I think these things will really start to come together. So start to think about that. How do you get these teams together and working well? And so that has been Power BI governance, and I hope that was really exciting. And yeah, I'll open up for questions. If we've got any questions? Go for it. So apps, when it comes to access management, I think that the new app audiences is a really good way to sort access. So in a world where you maybe had workspaces and all your workspace roles, I personally think that having a core reports workspace now and app audiences is a more preferable way to sort your access, especially if you're using AD groups. So rather than adding every person, have AD groups and have app audiences, and then all of a sudden you've got everything in one place. So I have just migrated my client off of workspace access to app access probably in the last couple of months. Yeah. Any more? Go for it. Mm. Yeah. Take them off the workspace, take them off the reports, they don't have a choice. Yeah, pretty much. I think it's also people like to favorite links. People like to have a link and they click on it. So trying to get people to get off links was always a bit of an issue. At clients I've seen, they create a link for a report and they'll send that link. If you create a link for a report, it defaults settings to anyone with this link can access it. And that is just so stressful because immediately anyone that gets sent that link can see the report. And so actually by trying to kill that off, it was always a case of get people using workspaces, get them navigating around. And you sometimes get there, but you often find yourself fighting against this battle of links that have been generated. Apps lets them use their links in a governed way. So by just taking them off, okay, they don't have access to the reports in the workspace anymore. They are not workspace members. They only access through the app. You're kind of not giving them a choice, but it's going to work for them because they can just favorite that link and they'll be happy. Yeah. Any more? Mm. Yeah, and they can still access. If I open up Power BI and I'm used to going to workspaces, it's just about getting them to go to apps and then they go there and they see. So, but it's about taking the time. So whenever change comes with Power BI, I think we as developers often go, right, so we're going to do it and then we're going to send an email out. It can't be like that. And coming back to BI business partners, if you have a person whose responsibility is to liaise with finance. So let's say you're an organization where you've got 3 BI business partners. This person does HR and finance, this person does marketing and commercial, this person does all your operations teams. You will be proactively working with them and have great relationships with them so that these things don't become as much of a struggle. So I know in smaller organizations that's hard. So maybe you as the developer, that needs to become your remit. You as the developer need to build a relationship with the people using these. And I think with any Microsoft product, they don't want to be big bad IT. You hear them say this a lot. So big bad IT, no, you can't do this. No, I think we need to, as developers, drop that mentality and work towards working with people. And so rather than feeling frustrated at people's lack of data literacy, work with them and show them how it can work for them. And that's really the way around it. Yeah. Any more? Lovely. Thank you.